Let's go.
Take those pills. Take those pills. Hey, here you go. Itching, sweating, take those pills. Thirsty, drowsy, take those pills. Worms, take those pills. I think you should take it. Oh. Itching, sweating, take those pills. Thirsty, drowsy, take those pills. Worms, take those pills. I think you should take it. Oh. Itching, sweating, take those pills. Thirsty, drowsy, take those pills. Worms, take those pills. Itchy all day. Here you go.
Let's go.
Take those pills. The full 30 days. Here you go. Hey, take those pills. Allergy pills. I think you should take it. Okay. Take those pills. The full 30 days. Here you go. Hey, take those pills. Allergy pills.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Take those pills. The full 30 days. Here you go. Hey, take those pills. I think you should take it. Okay. Take those pills. The full 30 days. Here you go. Hey, take those pills. Allergy pills. I think you should take it. Take these pills. Those pills again. Take these pills. Take these pills again. Itching, sweating. Take those pills. Thirsty, drowsy. Take those pills. Worms. Take those pills. I think you should take it. Itching. Take those pills. Thirsty, drowsy. Take those pills. Worms.
Oh, itchy all day.
Here you go.
Awesome.
Take those pills. The full 30 days. Here you go. Hey, take those pills. Allergy pills. I think you should take it.
Okay.
Take those pills. The full 30 days. Here you go.
Association chat will get started in just a second, but before that, let's hear from Blake Alphen at Human Factor for this episode's podcast tip.
Thanks, Kiki. Actually, today we're not doing tips as much as fun facts. Did you know unique monthly podcast listens have surpassed 75 million per month? 75 million per month! Podcast subscriptions soared past the 1 billion mark way back in 2013. There are 7 billion mobile devices worldwide, and 58% of Americans own a smartphone. 1 in 4 podcast consumers play their audio device in their car nearly every day. Oh, here's a tip. Some associations we work with wait 1 extra day to promote their podcast after it's published. That way you can get a feel for how many people actually pay attention to the feed versus how many people responded to your social media campaign or your mailing list. For more information about association podcasting, check out my banter at humanfactor.net. That's humanfactor.net.
Welcome to Association Chat, produced by Amplify Growth and Human Factor, talking about all things association, nonprofit, and anything else that pops into my mom's head. And now, here is your host, Kiki L'Italian.
this year. It's a pandemic worldwide, and it's on the rise. And UNICEF estimates that there are around 21 million trafficked people around the world. And this figure includes some 5.5 million children.
Million with an M.
Million with an M, yeah. And so it's absolutely, it's atrocious, it's scary, it's concerning. And our guests today are here to help us better understand the issue a little bit better and how it impacts associations and association professionals. And with us I have with us Eliza Riak, she has a title change since what I had on my notes. So let me get this right. Strategic Advisor on Child Sex Trafficking for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Did I get that right?
It's a mouthful, but you got it.
It is.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad that you're here. And Marianne Bobro, she's a lot of things. She's an associations and meetings professional who's spoken widely on this topic worldwide to planners with her keynote, See Something, Say Something, Do Something. And she's here with us too today. Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Kiki. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad to see you. And we also have John Carter. He's the producer of the new documentary, American Exploitation, The Slaves Among Us. And so welcome, yes. John. All right.
Yes, it's great. And wow, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
So I wanted to go ahead and let everyone know who's watching live right now that we do have a way that you can call in, engage, interact, and ask your questions. We have a call-in number that you can dial in. Blake, if you have it on the bottom of the screen.
202-816-5367.
Thank you. Yeah, and so if you have a question, if you have something you want to add, I have a little way to bring you online, and you can actually ask your questions or make your comments and interact with the guests. So let's go ahead and frame out this conversation. I want to talk a little bit about what the facts and figures are. Eliza, what are some of the current statistics for child trafficking in the U.S., and what are some of the demographics for those at risk?
Yeah, it's really hard to get solid numbers and research around this issue because of the hidden nature of this crime. What I can tell you is at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, because we are the clearinghouse for all missing and exploited children reports, we've been able to learn a lot just from the reports coming into us. So last year, we had over 10,000 reports of child sex trafficking come into NCMEC. And that was from every state in the U.S. It was in every type of community, whether that be rural, suburban, urban, tribal communities. So really not any area that we saw immune from this epidemic. We also saw that there were things that made kids more vulnerable, at least for the kids that were being reported to us. So 1 in 7 of the endangered runaways reported to us, we identified as likely victims of trafficking. And 85% of those kids that we identified had run away from a foster care group home placement. So we know that certainly our system-involved kids are particularly vulnerable. I do want to say, though, we are only able to provide reports and statistics out for those numbers that are reported to us. So, for instance, if a child was kicked out of his home due to his sexual identity or because of abuse in the home, they may be trafficked. That might not be on our caseload unless we receive a cyber tip.
Gosh, it's so scary. And you think about it, just digging in beneath the surface a little bit, you think about this being people who come in, not that it makes it any better, but people who are grabbed off the street or come in from outside the country or something like that. You don't think about it being, kids who live around your kid,
yeah,
your neighbor's
certainly.
Kid. And so, Marianne, I want to bring you into the conversation right now because I want to ask you, why is this an issue that association professionals and meeting professionals specifically need to be aware of? Why is this something that they in particular need to know more about?
With the size of the industry, and I'm going to expand it just beyond meeting and association into the greater hospitality world, because it doesn't just happen at industry events. It happens worldwide. It happens. It knows no bounds for any social class. It extends to our gay population. particularly young boys who are uncertain who they are and are vulnerable. And that's probably one of the key things when you go into who is being trafficked. There's no race, there's no class that doesn't get involved in it. And with the size of our population and with our spend possibility, it seems to me that collectively we should be doing more. I know there are people who have been involved in really bringing this cause to the surface for a very long time. Dave Peckinpah is one, for example. Long before he became president of NACS, he was involved and took up the cause. And that's where I first heard about it, was at an industry conference when he was rolling out why every meeting professional should have the mobile app for traffic cam on their camera. We travel, we go all over the world, and we can help in including more and more hotels, more and more rooms, no matter what class the hotel, into our entire database that is kept by Traffic Cam, that will recognize rooms. And once those rooms are in the database, then when they see videos of victims that are being sold, they can identify where they're at.
Okay, so I want to back up here just a little bit because you mentioned something that I heard a couple of people who I'd talked to mentioned that I had never heard of before. Okay, and that's this traffic cam.
Traffic cam.
Right. So can you talk to me a little bit about what that is? Because somebody else that I had spoken to, Sandy Bybeck, sent me some information and said, absolutely, you have to include, everybody should have Traffic Cam. What is Traffic Cam?
Traffic Cam is a mobile app, and it's available both for iPhone and for Android, and probably for others as well. I know it's on Google Play. I know that you can get it in the Apple Store. Mm-hmm. And it is TRAFFIKCAM. It's a mobile app, and it is so absolutely incredibly easy to use. You walk into a hotel room, and they ask you to take photographs of certain shops. Maybe it's the bathroom, it's the bed, but they don't want anybody in it. And then maybe a wide shot of the hotel, so that when they're looking through the sex videos that are out on the dark web, they can actually identify where that person is.
Huh.
No way.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's really smart. But here's what I'm concerned about. You know, yes, we're having this discussion here. Yes, it's talked about in the meetings and hospitality space a lot, but I had never heard of that until we were having this conversation right now.
Till now, yeah.
Right. And so why is that? That bothers me, because I think that if this is something where we could be doing something, proactively doing something, and I had no idea until doing this show.
It's a social thing, and most people are so integrated into producing education that is very specific to whatever that organization is, that they don't think about it. I have a client who is involved in enforcing codes throughout the state of California. And when I started talking to them about it, they knew exactly what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And they had a different perspective of it. And if you look about throughout the United States alone, every city, if you were to Google organizations that are combating sex trafficking, or they're combating the other element of trafficking, which is child labor, mm-hmm. which is also huge. And we certainly don't have time to go into the child trafficking, but equally as heartbreaking as the other. It's all around us. I look in my own community. I read what's going on, where two 15-year-old girls go up to an airport gate agent and hand them first-class tickets. These girls are obviously they don't know anything. They have no identification, but they have these first-class tickets.
Wow.
And the agents, what most of us don't know is the airlines are trained in it. Many of the major hotel brands are training all of their people in it. But it's like this unspoken thing that we don't all communicate together. These girls were asked by the county sheriffs, and they were told they had one-way tickets to New York City. And they said, no, it's round trip. We're only going for the weekend, and we're going to be in either a modeling or a dancing video. Wow. And this is how they're lured in. They're lured in on social media by someone they don't know, and they're given dreams that the girls lied to their parents. Oh, so they said they were staying at each other's homes.
So this is something that when I watched, John, the film that you produced, American Exploitation, this captured a specific area in Florida where this was taking place. And can you share with me, John, like what first of all, I want to know how you got into producing this documentary, like what compelled you, what grabbed you into learning more about this story and telling this story. And then how has this impacted you?
Oh, thanks. How's my audio? Okay.
Sounds great.
Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. So I've been making films for years, Hollywood type films and tons of commercials. And the long story short, the father of this young maker came to me and said, look, I think we have something here that's sort of unique. We live in Naples. My wife is a OBGYN in Naples. We're seeing more and more of this kind of thing happen in this small, wealthy community. We decided we would start interviewing shelters, victims, and law enforcement, and just sort of get a sense. We think we'd like to put a documentary together. Would you look at the footage? And so I looked through the footage, and I came back to them, and I said, look, I think you have a film. And so what the film does, and I think this translates across any community in the country, is it shows through the eyes primarily of victims, but also law enforcement, political perspective, and a lot of these shelters, these women that run the shelters, men and women that run the shelters, it shows the story. What we find is people are talking about it, and it's so hard to talk about it. It's so cumbersome. The film in an hour gives you this total perspective on how trafficking really works in a smaller, wealthy community, which happens to be Naples, Florida. So we have roughly, I think it's 6 victims that are interviewed, and they're intercut throughout the documentary, and you see and experience the trauma. It's just like someone who's been tortured or has been through a war crime or post-traumatic stress disorder. It's just like that. These people are in some stage of recovery. And so you get to see and feel and hear what it's like from the victims. It's very unique. I've never seen anything quite like it. And since we're isolated in Naples, you really get this real kind of beginning, middle, and end in one community. And it's very easy then to take that and say, okay, gosh, what's happening in Marietta, Georgia? Right. What's happening in Alexandria, Virginia? Right? You get a real sense of what trafficking really is. And it is slavery. Trafficking is the victim, the person providing the service is not getting paid. Someone else gets paid. They're just in the middle of all of this. Well, so it's been, I could go on and on. I'll let other people speak, but I have had an experience as a filmmaker in what's going on here. And all I can say that the film does is it shows what it's like. Not in a, an R type fashion, but you get this experiential for an hour. You get to really dive into the lives of these people that are affected or touching this slavery every single day.
Right. And it's just, the numbers are mind boggling. And when I watched your film, I started crying in the middle of the film because, you know, the thing is that I think that all of us think that happens somewhere else or that happens to some other kids, but it's just like what Marianne was, this story that she's sharing. You know, it's these two girls who they probably think that they are acting out and they're going to be famous if they just make it. They'll be on a video and they'll make it big, and then they get caught up in drugs or they get caught up in.
There's something that happened to me, which is the result of this. Really kind of interesting. I play a lot of tennis. There's a guy that's a good friend of mine, who owns a very successful business, just a wonderful guy. And he came to one of our first screenings that we were hosting about 6 months ago when we were really pulling the film together and we wanted to start to develop audience and get feedback. And this gentleman told me what had happened with his daughter. And this is a wealthy, very together, wonderful guy whose daughter got pulled into this in a wealthy community. And when I heard about this, I'm like, okay, this is affecting anyone, anywhere.
It's pervasive. And I think that, you know, I want to go back to you, Eliza, and, you know, what does this look like? You know, it can happen in any community. It is happening in any community. But are there some typical, you know, are there some things to watch out for that are sort of the hallmarks or the people who are most at risk that we need to beware of?
Yeah, certainly. I think, I mean, first, I think it's important for us to talk about what we define child sex trafficking as. Mm-hmm. So federally, any child who's involved in a commercial sex act, which means a sex act in exchange for food, for drugs, for clothing, is a victim of child trafficking, whether or not there is a third-party trafficker involved. And that's really important, both because these kids are very likely to disclose their abuse, and we want to make sure they're getting access to services. But also, anytime an adult is using a child for sex, whether or not there's money involved, it's the child who is a victim and the adult perpetrator who's committing that crime. So first of all, anytime you see somebody who looks too young or that is involved in a scenario which you think could be classified as prostitution, we would say there's no such thing as a child prostitute, because we know these kids are, again, victims of a crime. It is this crime being committed against them. But certainly, if you're seeing that kind of behavior, we'd want to say report it to police or to NCMEC immediately. As far as warning signs, more specific to juveniles where you're not quite sure, things like, you know, if you have a child checking into a hotel room, shouldn't be able to have access to hotel keys. If they have large amounts of cash, if they have bulk amount of condoms or other such material, that's going to be an amazing red flag. I think with this crime, it's really important to remember it's a crime that's been hidden in plain sight. You know, right. I think people think it's a new phenomenon, but it's more that we're calling it something different and we're recognizing the trauma that these kids are experiencing. So once people become more aware, I think they're more likely to see it. And if you're seeing these things, for instance, also tattoos are a huge indicator.
Really?
Clearly,
tattoos?
Yeah, clearly lots of children have tattoos. So I wouldn't say any tattoo on a child is going to be an indicator. But in trafficking, that like idea of dominance and branding is very prominent. So if you see a child that has a tattoo about money or about loyalty, you know, we've seen inappropriate language that you wouldn't want on your body. That can be an indicator. Sometimes barcodes, or if the child's unwilling to explain their tattoo, right? People get tattoos because they're excited to. If they have somebody's name and they don't want to tell you why, that's something that could really be a red flag and certainly worth reporting.
Man,
you know,
I never thought any of this.
I know. Well, and you know, so obviously,
a tattoo.
A tattoo. You don't think about that.
On children in general, I don't think of tattoos.
But even if you saw it, you wouldn't necessarily... I wouldn't even think that. I would be like,
no.
Wow, that was poor judgment. Or their parents made a poor choice or something. But like...
well, and the tattoos that we're seeing would be something like daddy's little B word or loyalty to XYZ. Again, barcodes, cash, things that are really indicative of ownership. This is control. It's branding. So it's certainly something we've started to track at NCMEC because we've seen incidences where one trafficker may brand children with all the same tattoos. So that's something you might see as well, right? A group all having the exact same tattoo that seems strange, again, on children. Not necessarily means that they're a victim of trafficking, but might be worth making a report or seeing if you notice anything else.
Hey, I have a quick question for Marianne.
This Marianne.
Oh, yeah.
When you look at John's, I just saw the trailer this morning of John's video, and he shows that trafficking is happening in Naples, and there's a picture of a car going down the street, which sent chills down my spine. In Sacramento, the police got a call from a young girl who was hiding in a backyard. She was hiding from someone who was trafficking her and another young girl. She said she was hiding. The other girl was in the car. He was parked outside, and could they come get her, which they did, and they arrested him. When I say it goes across all classes, he was a high school soccer coach.
Oh, my God.
Then you start looking at the Hollywood population. There's a group called Nexium, which is a sex cult organization, and the leader has now been arrested for trafficking. Women like the Bronfman sisters, that's the Seagram fortune, donated more than $150 million to this group. Allison Mack of Smallville was part of this group. And then there was the daughter of Catherine Oxenberg, who was on Dynasty. And her daughter was wrapped up, and they're all now facing charges for human trafficking. This is Hollywood. Welcome to it. Well, it's everywhere.
So it's everywhere. It's pervasive. We have kids hiding out in backyards and tattooed and branded, and it seems as if not enough is being done.
Oh,
right?
I have a question for Marianne, actually.
Okay.
Hey, Marianne.
There doesn't seem to be a cohesive approach to the topic. Everybody's trying to do something. I looked in my own local area for where I could help. And the groups were passionate about what they wanted to happen, but they had no organization. And it's really hard to break through that because all they can see is passion and not a pathway towards a major solution. So, and that's where we need to go.
So Blake, go ahead.
Can I? It's John here.
Yeah.
Did I disrupt your thought there, Kiki?
Yeah, and then I need to bring Blake in.
Well, I just have one quick question for Marianne.
Yeah, who do we go?
Out of that app that we were talking about with the hotels that scans and everything,
yeah.
where you scan, how many hotels do we have? Is it like logged in the system?
Like how many hotels are logged in the traffic cam?
Like I'm also thinking like association. Chat, if an association like I did the National Association of Convenience Stores Convention, that was 30,000 people staying in 30,000 hotel rooms. If they put out a thing saying, hey, could all of our members snap
that's what I'm thinking is like every association that has a huge meeting, if everybody took those pictures, if they all used it. But how many conferences have I been at, and I've never even heard of this?
Well, that's what I was asking Marianne. How many hotels do we have or logged in the system?
Thousands and thousands of hotels are logged into the system. And if you go in many airports now, I can't speak for the men's room.
You haven't been in.
I can't speak for the ladies' room. In Sacramento, there are signs on the wall that give the victim. It's about the only place they can go without their handler.
Yeah, I've heard about
that are giving them a phone number to call. And there are women in those restrooms that are just willing to lend them a phone. Las Vegas, it's on the back of every women's stall in the Las Vegas airport.
Wow.
And I think it's worth mentioning with the traffic cam, we have been really grateful at NCMEC to have access to traffic cam photos, and they share information with us as well. And we had a case, it wasn't actually a traffic cam report, but one of our analysts, after an online ad was reported to us through our cyber tip line, we were able to, just by the sink in the background, recognize that hotel, that sink is particular to a specific hotel. We knew that young person was already on our missing child list. And so we knew she was in one of 2 states. We were able to say, okay, that hotel chain is in that state. And we were able to have local law enforcement information of her location and recovery within 24 hours of the posting going up.
Wow.
Look at you.
So those kind of things can really make a difference. There's nothing too small to report.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
John, what were you going to say?
I mean, NCMEC is, you guys are originally America's Most Wanted, right? Is that?
Well, we were founded by John and Reve Walsh and other parents of missing and abducted children. And John Walsh did go on to host America's Most Wanted.
Okay.
Oh.
So the first broadcast production on was America's Most Wanted. This is back in the day. We're not going to say the year. I'm just offering this up openly here. You know, we have a 1-hour film, and having done a lot of this, the film does a very good job of compressing what is so difficult to explain, just by nature of the subject matter, but also just getting someone to really visually understand and get their hands around what this whole trafficking thing is, right? Domestic, right here. And so, you know, the purpose of the film, now that we've just finished it, is to partner with NCMEC. I mean, I live in Alexandria, right? Mm-hmm. So is to partner with these organizations and to use the film in school systems and through all forms of media, so that people in an hour can really get a much quicker, compressed understanding of what this thing is. So as we move forward, I just want to offer that up because I think that's really our mission with the film.
Well, and that's actually a really great point, because I'm sure that along with your film and traffic cam, there are other tools that people can use to help, you know, as far as resources and ways that they can report things. And I mean, what are, and I'll ask all of you actually to answer this, what are some of the other resources that we can go to get more information, or tools we can use to fight this on a regular basis?
Well, certainly ECPAT is a global organization, and that is also has a USA branch and branches around the world. And they have an indicator card that anyone can download that will tell you about the signs. And you know, we're talking about associations, we're talking about the meetings industry. Kiki, why aren't we approaching the leaders of those organizations and say, will you show John's video? I just watched the trailer, and it's very, very impactful. And I know for a fact that Meeting Professionals International, Paul Van Venter and Rich Luna, who runs their magazine, are running articles every month on human trafficking from different perspectives. So why can't we keep that fire burning?
Right.
And other people understand that it could be your daughter.
Well, be
your son.
Yeah, in a world where there is an association for everything, mm-hmm. you know, meeting planners know, hoteliers, you guys are all working together to spread the word, to do what you can on your side. But just imagine if the Organization of Steelworkers, if the Association of Barbershop Quartets, if all of these different associations informed their membership, which probably have no idea what to look for or what kind of awareness is there, before they go to their next annual meeting, they watch John's film and they download Traffic Cam, and that's part of their experience. That's part of their meeting app, or that's part of whatever.
Just integrate it right in the meeting app.
Integrated into what they do. That's just like the onboarding for participation in the conference. Then that much more awareness is out there. There's that much more that's happening, and it's just incredible. That I've been, I don't know, in the association world for 15 years. I've been doing association chat for
how many hotels have you stayed in?
Almost 10. I've stayed in how many hotels? I could have helped out on Traffic Cam, and I didn't even know about it until today.
But now you do.
But now I do. So And we haven't gotten any calls that have come in, and I'm sure that this is something where people are, it's a touchy subject. It's hard to talk about. It's difficult. You don't want to think that it's happening, but it's still very, very important,
Well, I can provide, some resources as well, if now's a good time, just that NCMEC has available.
Great.
Yeah.
I want to hear. No, I'm saying please.
Oh, absolutely. So if you go to missingkids.org, which is our website, the issues, child sex trafficking, we have several fact sheets, one specifically for child welfare professionals and those working with children in care because of the statistics we talked about, as well as a fact sheet and guide for parents and guardians. We have an indicator list. So you were talking about indicators before. We have a full 2 pages of both physical and behavioral indicators to look out for potential child sex trafficking. We already mentioned ECPAC and the code of conduct, which I think is always so critical for association type groups and hotels. And certainly if there's an emergency, call the police right away. But any information, I mentioned one, but one of our key pieces at NCMEC is we are one of the only nonprofits to have access to national crime databases, as well as a huge amount of donated resources from groups like Palantir and Spotlight, which is a charge for law enforcement. Yeah. We can provide them access to those resources for free. So any tip that's coming into us, whether it's we saw this young person at this truck stop, or we saw this tattoo and we thought it was fishy, or we were at this hotel, and it's going to be going to our bigger database stream. So, when you're questioning it, please report either through our cyber tip line or at 1-800-THE-LOST. And then also, we really are specific to child sex trafficking, but there is the National Human-Trafficking Resource Center if you suspect trafficking of labor or adults, as a great resource as well.
That's wonderful.
To that, on top of that, I'll say that, we own the film. It's cost us a lot of money to make it, but if it's an appropriate venue, we will show up with the film. We can create a panel, partner with whoever, show the film in front of an audience. It could be a corporate audience or community. And, there in 2 hours, you've got this educational event that I think could be quite useful and help people to understand what to do and help them to know that NCMEC's there. Resources and what to look for. So, we're offering that service as well.
All right. And Marianne, you were going to say something?
I said, don't forget the Homeland Security as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have a very robust website on human trafficking, both labor and sex trafficking. And they also have videos on what to look for.
All right. So this has been, were you gonna? I didn't mean to cut you off, Eliza. I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say I agree. I think it's called the Blue Campaign at Homeland Security.
It is the Blue Campaign, yes.
Mm-hmm. Good.
All right. So thank you all for participating today. I really, really appreciate it. It's been excellent information. And so I'm going to go down the list and ask you how people can connect with you, contact you if they want to follow up or get more information. Eliza, how can they reach out to you?
Sure. So missingkids.org, I mentioned our cyber tip line and hotline. Or if you wanted to reach out to me directly, you can just call the hotline and ask for me, Eliza Riak, as well. And again, thanks so much. The more awareness we have, it's so important.
All right. Wonderful. Wow. And Marianne, how about for you?
You can always find me on Facebook. I'm at mbobro on Twitter, and Marianne at bobroassociates.com is my email.
Wonderful. And John, how can people reach you?
Potomac Digital Group, Potomac like the river, digital like digital. Potomac Digital Group, there's a tab right on our site that takes you to the microsite for the film. And then right there, you can click to get right in touch with us. You can license the film and get involved with us through that, or go to American Exploitation, the film. Either way, we're there.
It sounds great. Guys, this has been incredible. Blake, I learned something. How about you?
I did. I felt thoroughly depressed in the beginning. And now I feel like there's hope.
You looked like it. Yeah, so we're going to download the apps. We're going to make the contacts we need to, and we're going to make a difference. We're going to actually change this. All of us, every single person who's watching this. Thank you for the applause. Can make a difference. And so thanks to all of you. I hope you learned something helpful today that will help you. Please join us next time for the next association chat. Until next time, everyone, keep asking questions to learn every day. As Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek.
Thanks for listening to Association Chat, produced by Amplified Growth and Human Factor. For more information on Amplified Growth, go to amplifiedgrowth.net. And for more information on making podcasts for your association, go to Human Factor at humanfactor.net. To hear past episodes, go to the Association Chat YouTube channel and subscribe. See you soon!